turn my mute off there. I'd like to welcome everybody to Google PD Week. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit about expanding the walls of your classroom and the power of technology to not only allow our students to publish their work, but to interact with a global audience and engage in global collaboration. So I'm going to be screen sharing again in a moment, but I wanted to let you know that I'm certainly happy that you're here. And if you have, if you'd like to interact and ask questions, we're going to use the chat feature on the side of the YouTube video there. So I know we've already got Jason from New York, Emily from St. Louis, Missouri, Elena from Mexico. So certainly introduce yourself, and I will be monitoring that chat on a separate computer during the presentation, so during this session. So feel free to ask questions and connect that way with us. Feel free also to put your Twitter handles in there so that you can connect on Twitter if you would choose to, and follow everyone that's on the chat there today. We got some more people joining in as well from Texas, from Colombia. Excellent. Glad to hear it. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here, and we will go ahead and get started, and I'll let you know what we are going to talk about. Let's see here. All right. Okay, so just a little bit about me. My name is Katherine Goyette, and I am currently an educational technology and integrated studies consultant in California. I'm actually in Vegas right now. I had already planned a little trip, and so that's the beauty of technology, is that we can share our knowledge and connect with people no matter where we're at. So I love that. I am a Google certified innovator and present for EdTech team quite often, and love doing that. It's been an awesome experience. Definitely want to thank Google for this opportunity, and those of you that are interested in learning more, the Google certification information, there's a link on the bottom of this of the description under the YouTube thing down there. So, all right, that's the information about me on this slide. If you would like to connect with me and have any questions after the chat, I'm certainly more than welcome, or more than willing to help everyone out. We've got more people coming in on the chat. Again, go ahead and ask questions on there. Here's a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today. Expanding the walls of your classroom, all based on students and having students do that. We're going to talk about the world that our students live in first, and the need for a global audience and global collaboration. We're also going to talk a little bit about the power of publishing and why it is important that we publish student work and allow them to do that. We're also going to talk about flipping the model and putting students in charge rather than teachers, and what that looks like when we put students in charge of their own learning. We're going to talk about audience matters and about leveraging the power of an authentic audience. We're going to talk a little bit about a role change and how teachers are now setting the stage and allowing students to be empowered and leading their own learning. And finally, we're going to talk about students as global collaborators. So not simply just merely publishing their work to a global stage, which in and of itself is a wonderful thing that technology allows us to do, but actually doing that with a collaborative piece as well, so that students can connect to each other across the world and connect with industry partners. And we're going to talk about a lot of the ways that we can do this using the Google Suite of tools. And so you will be able to see how these tools in the Google Suite allow us to expand the walls of our classrooms. Thanks again for everyone that's in the chat introducing themselves. And like I'd said before, if you have any questions, I am monitoring that, so I will certainly be able to answer questions as they come up. So firstly, talking about our students' world, the world that our students live in. I'm going to play a short video here about what our world is like now. So media is all around us, and our students are inundated with screens. They're living in this world. And so what do we do with that? This is not something that we can simply ignore. Our students are accessing information and connecting with each other on various levels using social media, through various media outlets. And it's not just we don't just watch TV anymore. We actually interact with it. There's hashtags, there's Twitter, there's all these ways that students are interacting with the world and connecting with each other using this world that we live in. And so because of that, our future ready students need to learn how to connect and how to do that in a responsible way. And that's something we can actually leverage in our classrooms so that we can take advantage and meet them where they're at in this world today. George Couros, author of Innovator's Mindset, talks about what we need to look for innovative learning. And for our students, connected learning is such a powerful way. It's not just the world we live in, but it's a wonderful way that we can connect our students with experts, and how we can connect our students with others. That helps us build empathy for our students as well, so that they know what's going on in the world. So I had the great fortune of meeting George Couros and hearing him speak, and he talks about 3 things that students should have before they leave high school. One is a professional social network. Now, sometimes teachers get nervous about social networks and learning, because there's a lot of bad stuff out there. But there was an article out, we just had some students that their acceptance to Harvard, I believe it was Harvard, was rescinded because of some inappropriate memes that they had put on social media. So we need our students to not only be aware of the dangers, but to also actually create a professional social network. I would ask you, how often do your students, or how often do you Google yourself? How often do you Google your name to see what shows up? Our students need to start building a positive brand, a professional brand. And in our connected world, it's so important that they actually do this digitally. A digital portfolio, how do we do that? How do we get our students to, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later, about the platforms that we can use to make sure that our students are safely not only navigating this digital world that they live in, but they are also taking advantage of that and helping to build their future in a responsible way with this. So we're going to talk about leveraging technology to prepare students to not only showcase their work, but also to make connections, because that's something else that's very powerful that we can teach our students to do. I have a question on here from Gerald. How do we change mindsets with leadership whose first response is restriction instead of innovation? And that's true. That's a very, it's a tricky one. I would encourage you to look up on Twitter. Joe Sanfilippo has done some great work. He's a superintendent out of, I believe, in the Midwest. I heard him speak, and he has really transformed the way that allowing students to use social media and using it for his own, for branding for his own school as well. And so that's one thing I would do. I would also say starting small. Sometimes I know that at my school site, I began, even though the students had a lot of restrictions at a school site I was at prior, with Twitter and Facebook and all these things, and it was blocked on our Wi-Fi even at our school district, and yet I would, on my phone, I would still tweet out stuff that was going on in the community and going on at the school on Twitter, on Facebook, and what would happen is, sure enough, parents started talking because I was saying all these, using social media to show all these great things that were happening in the school. And once the administration started hearing parents talking positively and saying that they had seen these things on social media, that helped a little bit. So I think that's part of it. I think a lot of it too is students understand the power of social media, and I think that administration often doesn't. They aren't on Twitter. They don't see the power of the connections. So even doing like a mock Twitter chat or doing a Google Hangout to connect leaders together, you know, kind of facilitating that so they can see how we can save time by meeting without being physically present, and then saying, hey, let's meet with someone outside the school district, across the world, across the nation, showing them the power and kind of modeling that. I think then slowly it will start to trickle down to where they see the power for the students as well. It's a very good question. It's something we have to just continually advocate for. Another good question was if a student or a teacher even Googles themselves and doesn't like what pops up. So it's difficult to get rid of something that pops up that you maybe have put on the internet that's negative. However, you really want to have the positives outweigh the negatives. And so I know for myself, I'm always trying to post, you know, build my brand, so to speak, through you know, website, through things that I put on YouTube and Google Plus and various things. So I think that students need to learn too that they need to just start. If there's a whole bunch, if there's so many positives that you're kind of burying that negative, I think that's a good way to address that. So, all right, I'm just kind of reading the chat here as well. All right, so as far as digital citizenship, we are going to talk about publishing student work and having students connect with industry partners and with others, their peers across the nation and across the world, globally. But we have to start with digital citizenship because, as someone said in the chat, sometimes students will, you know, if they're not aware of it, they may post things that are not, you know, that are inappropriate and that make them look bad. So we've really got to focus on the digital citizenship first. Kevin Honeycutt says that our kids are playing on a digital playground and no one is on recess duty. And so we really need to guide students in using and creating media responsibly. And so that's something we've really got to focus on as educators. I believe that's a responsibility that we need to do. So commonsensemedia.org is an excellent free resource that has, if you haven't checked out that website, I certainly encourage you to do so. It's so important that students understand how to be safe online. It's so powerful, and there's so many amazing, wonderful things that they can do digitally, and making these connections and getting their work out there and publishing it. I believe that students should be publishing their work on YouTube. I believe they should be putting it out to a public audience, that they should be connecting using Google Hangouts with each other, but they have to know how to do it safely. And so we've got to start with that. So commonsensemedia.org is a wonderful resource. And also, Google just came out with Be Internet Awesome, which this just came out this week. Very exciting. Another digital citizenship resource. I have looked at it a bit because it's pretty new and it looks awesome. So I'm excited to delve into it and use that. And it's a way that they kind of use gaming principles to teach students about digital citizenship. So it seems like an engaging way to go to teach our students safety that way. So anyway, definitely look into that. And the kids will learn this and they will remember. I know my son plays video games collaboratively with his friends. And so one time I asked him, hey, by the way, it's a couple years ago, I said, do you only play with your friends, right, when you're playing online? And he says, oh yes, Mom, I know. And I never give out my real name, and I never say how old I am, and I never say where I go to school, and I never say, where I live. And I thought, wow, that's pretty good. And I said, where'd you learn all that? And he said, well, they taught us at school. And I thought, wow, that's good. So schools that teach this digital citizenship, it will filter through to our students' daily lives as they will start thinking about these things when they're playing video games with their friends and when they're playing with people online, when they are posting on social media, etc. So thanks again, those of you that have joined late. Thanks for coming in. I am answering questions that are coming in through the live chat on the side of the video. So if you have any questions or comments, certainly pop them into that live chat there. Thank you. All right, so the power of publishing. That's what we're going to talk about next, publishing student work. This is what I love about the Google Suite is all of the apps work so well together. And so in this specific example, this was a tech team that we had created at a school site I was at. And so the students all went into a Google site. They created a Google site, and that's where everything else was produced. And of course, as a Google site, you can set your privacy settings to be either within your own domain, or you can open it up to a global audience. We did open that particular one up to a global audience at the time. And what was cool was you can take that site, and that your Google site can kind of be your one-stop shop for all of your students' work. And then your blog, you can have a blogger that it links to. You can link to Google Slides, presentations, link to YouTube videos that the students have created. And so the sites was really kind of that one-stop shop for all of the students' work. Because a lot of times what will happen if you start publishing student work, it's nice to have that one place that it's all housed. And for us, we really liked using sites for that particular purpose. Then students could work in groups or individually on separate portions, but it all was creating a larger product. So what happened was when I started this Tiger Tech team and publishing student work, publishing their work out to the world, their motivation increased so much because all of a sudden, as a student, I'm just not just creating something for a grade. I'm not just creating it for my teacher. I'm not creating it out of compliance. I'm creating something that I know anyone in the world could potentially see. And that is powerful. That is something that if you want students engaged and empowered in the process of learning, have them published to a global audience. It's a game changer. It really is. These students were so excited. This was their idea. They decided, I had created this tech team where they were their goal was to increase technological proficiency at the school site for other students. And so we were going to use technology to do that. We were going to have our Google site where other students could come in. They were going to write a blog, put in some slide decks, put in some YouTube tutorials. They were so excited that they started coming up with additional ideas that weren't mine, which was awesome. So they said, we need to make a flyer because we need to let everyone know that this website's coming out. So they went ahead and created this flyer, digital flyer in Google Slides, and then they advertised it. And the cool part too is when you start allowing your students to make choices, to have that voice and choice, they own the work and they come up with ideas that you wouldn't have dreamed of. I asked them, what do you want to do? What are your goals for this tech team, for example? And there was a student that said, well, I want to create a website and tutorials so that we can teach people around, not just our students, our peers, but our parents and everyone around the world. So this student was saying, hey, I want to teach others around the world. And if you engage students in taking the content that they're learning and saying, now go teach someone else, but guess what? Don't just teach your peer. Don't just do pair share and teach the person next to you. How about if you teach something and you teach the whole world? Anyone can look at that. So that's something that's can be super powerful. Some of you may be saying, well, that's great, Catherine. I mean, you can do that because you're, a techie and you know all these things, but I'm not good at technology. Or maybe some of you are coaches and you have teachers that say this. You have teachers that say, that's great, You're the tech coach. I get it. I'm not good at technology. Not going to work in my classroom. That's something that I've heard quite often. But the secret is, the key, you don't have to be good at technology. You don't. Because you're not the ones that should be in charge of the learning. We got to flip the model and put the students in charge. You do not have to know all of these tools that I'm going over. Allow the students to learn, allow the students to lead, flip that model, and we're going to talk about some strategies to do that as well. And all of a sudden, it's a game changer. All of a sudden, when you empower your kids like that, you don't have to know everything. Let the students lead. You're allowing them to create their own learning experiences. So AJ Giuliani and John Spencer, author of Launch Book, have written a book called Launch. And I made a book snap about this. And it really is in line with George Kiros's philosophy, who I spoke about earlier. And they say in this book, what if creativity means you abandon prepackaged meals and empower your students to be the chefs? We have to shift our mindset a bit, and we have to say, okay, instead of me telling the students this is what you need to do, what if I tell the students this is what we need to learn, this is what we need to accomplish, how do you want to display your learning? How do you want to display your learning? And here's the cool part about the Google suite of tools. Someone just asked about a book snap. I'll address that in just a second. I'll give a little bit more explanation because it's super cool. But with Google, if your students learn 1 or 2 Google products, Google apps pretty well, all the rest of them are pretty user-friendly, pretty intuitive. Like the buttons are often in the same place, the share button, the setting button, you know, the gear always looks the same. And so they can learn the others pretty simply. If they learn to search something on, you know, search how to do something on Google, you don't have to know everything. Let them learn. Empower them to be lifelong learners. So had a couple questions on here. The first one was about book snaps. I mentioned book snaps. Tara Martin, I'm going to thank her for the inspiration for that. Students, when they book snap, they essentially take a picture of their book. They can use Snapchat, but you can also do the same thing in even Google Slides, or Google Drawings. Take a picture of their book, as you can see I have a picture here, and then they essentially do kind of close reading, and so they'll annotate directly on the screen. So you see my Bitmoji there, you see I circled something, and with our new Chromebooks, you can directly, you know, write directly on the screen as well. So that's what book snaps are. Very exciting. If you look on Twitter and you put hashtag book snaps, you'll see a whole bunch of resources on that. Tara Martin is a great resource for that as well. Also, some people were asking about Google Sites because we talked about that as an alternative to traditional paper interactive journals. I like that, Gerald. Yeah, ditch that copier, as one of my colleagues, Tech Coach Juarez, says, using a digital means like that, and now all of a sudden everyone can see my interactive journal, right? It's digital. That's powerful. I like that. And Carol's asking Gerald if that was something that you have one page for each student. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. And Sites is so simple. I had 4th and 5th graders use classic Sites. Now Google has the new Sites, which is even more simple for kids to use. But I had 5th graders learn to use classic Sites pretty much on their own. And when they didn't know how to do something, they would Google it or look for a YouTube tutorial. So again, you don't have to know all the answers. Your teachers, if you're a coach, your teachers, let them know. You don't have to know all the answers. Let the kids lead. And all of a sudden, the work that they will produce is it will be incredible. It will amaze you. So I want to show this video briefly as well to show the power of students learning, being empowered in the learning process and not relying on us as teachers to give them their information, and how much more motivating that's going to be.
Windmills,
Flares,
head tracks,
90s, floats, air
air
flares,
flares,
air freezes,
hand
hand hops, hair chair, L kick, Right? It's when you Okay, so we looked up like on YouTube how to do some moves and stuff.
technique.
Yeah. What we mainly include is like break dancing, freestyle hip hop, and like flipping and tricks.
And we started off with basic moves, and we started increasing our skill level. And then we would look like step by step on how to do the move and try to like copy it as best as possible.
It's just like really fun. I feel like when I'm spitting, I just go really fast, and it's fun, and like I have a goal to like try to reach more than what I already did.
That's what I'm talking about.
There's so many videos on the internet that you can learn from, and I've learned how to do so many different dance moves and different way to master my flips and stuff from the internet.
You won't just like learn by looking at the videos. You have to be committed and watch it over and over and over.
Keep
Just
practicing,
keep practicing.
and don't give up just because you can't do something like
Yeah.
the first time you try.
Just
Like
that
it
happened
takes
to us.
practice. I hope that whoever watches this video knows that when you want to learn something, it takes time and dedication, and to use the internet because it's probably your best resource.
That's what I'm talking about.
So in this video,
Wake up, please just say.
students are not only learning using technology, learning on YouTube, on the internet, but they're creating, right? So they can showcase their learning in the same way that they learn. So again, flipping that model, you don't have to know it all. We did have a good question from Carol that said, I don't want the students to get overwhelmed by learning too many things at once. And I'm paraphrasing Carol. But I think that if we allow students voice and choice, and we say, you get to choose. You get to say, I'd like to demonstrate my learning using a slide presentation and putting it on our class website. And then maybe another student says, I would like to demonstrate my learning using video. I'd like to make a video and put it on YouTube and put that on our class website, or our class Google Classroom, even if you want to keep it within your own class. If they start sharing their learning that way and they get to choose, then they're only learning one or two new apps at a time. Maybe they get really good at that, and then they can teach each other. So, I'm not advocating that you necessarily say, okay, we're all going to learn these tools right now so that you know how to use them the rest of the year. No, instead give them choice and let them decide when they want to learn those things. The other thing is you always lead with learning, not with tech. So when we think about all the tech tools that Google Suite has, that a lot of people don't even realize. I mean, we've got Google Hangouts, we've got slides, we've got drawings. A lot of people don't know about Google Drawings. There's tools that a lot of people don't even know about, and that's okay because you don't have to work on those tools. You use them based on the learning goals. So if, as a student, I'm going to teach something or learn something, I lead with that, and then I might say, I think this is best for a blog. I think we're journaling, so we're going to do a blog. We're going to do a lot of writing. Okay, we are demonstrating something where you need to see what I built kinesthetically. Maybe I need to make a video. And so the students learn those tools based on the best way, the proper tool for the proper task, in other words. So audience matters. When we have an authentic audience for our students, their motivation increases. And we can use technology to leverage that. So this is the picture on the left is some students that we had at a school site I was at, and the news came. And because these students knew that the local news was coming, all of a sudden, they all wanted to practice before school, during lunch, after school, because they knew that their work was going to be published. All of a sudden, it meant something. So we really want to leverage the power of an authentic audience. And we can, of course, do that with YouTube. We can take these videos and we can publish them on YouTube. And all of a sudden, as a student, I know now my work means something. Now my work isn't just for my teacher. It's not just for a grade. It's to teach someone else, or it's to make a difference in the world. And all of a sudden, everything changes. It's a dynamic shift. The picture on the left shows the tweet that I did. Some students were making a video using a green screen. They were about what they had learned. And these students didn't know me because it was a new school site. And so the teacher said, gosh, Katherine, these students, they keep saying, can we practice? Can we practice? You know, it's only one line that each kid's saying. I just don't understand. I couldn't understand why they were so insistent on practicing their lines. And I asked them, and then she said their response was, oh, well, Ms. Tyler, you know, Ms. Goyette comes into our room and she takes pictures and we might be on Twitter. And so the fact that the students knew that they could potentially have their work seen by someone outside of their teacher, outside of their classroom, gave them intense internal accountability. And that's what we want for our kids, right? We want them to feel like what they do matters. Audience matters because that shows you, that validates your students and shows you that they matter too. If I know that you are creating an audience for me, you're going to publish my work for an audience, then I feel validated as a student and as a person, and I feel like I matter. This is another example of some students that do a news report that they put on YouTube. It shows in the office as parents are coming in. And it's not just about that performance, right? The back, what they do on the back end is so important as well. So you can see them collaboratively deciding, what is it that we are going to report on? What is it that we're going to do? And so this is something that has really, the community has really come along with this and loves seeing all of the student-led newscasts that these students are doing. And again, they publish it on YouTube. You know, this particular site doesn't do this, but they could, you know, they've got their YouTube channel. If they wanted to house everything in a website, in a Google site that the students ran, then they could have other students that their strength is writing, and maybe they would do a blog. And it's just a good way to engage the community and show that their work matters. It also helped the students in knowing that they had to publish what's going on at their school site to the world. It made them think more about what they were learning in class. And so I really liked this student's comment that he said, I found another good story. I listened to what the teacher was telling the class, and I knew it was a good story. So now I have a reason as a student to be aware and be observant of what's happening in my school and in my classroom and what my teachers are telling me and what my peers are saying, because I'm going to tell that story. So when students become storytellers, then all of a sudden, that's a game changer. So as teachers, we have a bit of a role change from the traditional teacher-directed instruction. we need to do this. We've got to empower our kids. Teachers are now, their job is not so much to be dispensers of knowledge, but to create environments that students will be willing to take risks and try new things. And we have some newcomers in the chat, which is great. Thank you for asking questions on the chat there. For the kids to storytell, they were just, they were using a green screen and using Do Ink, but essentially, the key is that you actually publish that work. And so having that published onto YouTube, for example, having a YouTube channel is kind of the key in there. And there's different ways that they can use storytelling too. You could use YouTube, you could give them choice. They could say, I want to do this in a slide deck and screencast over it. There's many different options with that. But as a teacher, our roles changed a bit, right? We need students to be willing to lead the learning. And in order to do that, they need to know that it's safe to try things. It's safe to fail forward. My colleague, Corey Orlando, talks about #failforward. And that's so important to create that environment for students, because if they think that the teacher is the one that always has the right answer, they're not going to be as willing to, as you saw in the video with the student dancers, to go to YouTube to look for that information. They're just going to ask for the teacher's advice, right? We want students that feel comfortable going beyond the teacher and looking into that. We talked about at the beginning of the context of the world we live in. There is information all over the place, right? Good and bad, fact and fiction. And so our job as a teacher is no longer to teach facts, but to show students how to, looking on Google, looking on YouTube, find what is good information, what is factual, and then how can I make a difference and, create that, how can I teach that to others? All right. So we talked a little bit about those teachers, and you may be one of them. It's totally fine, that says, I'm not good at technology. I don't know how I would teach these kids these tools, and you don't have to. You can flip your class, right? There are Google certified trainers and Google certified innovators that have created screencasts. They do this as their job many times if they are coaches at school sites and districts. And so they create screencasts of instructional tutorials for students. So this is an example. There's a tweet here on the left of Sergio from Cutler Rossi, and a Google certified trainer, Tech Coach Juarez, had created a screencast on his YouTube channel, sent it to the kids via Google Classroom, and said, watch this video that's going to show you how to make a blogger profile. And then the students were able to create a blog. And Blogger, of course, is a Google app that is free in the Google suite. And so Tech Coach Juarez used Screencastify to create that those instructions of how to start the blogger profile, because now as a student, if I was absent that day, I can still engage in the lesson. If it takes me a little bit longer than the student next to me, I can just rewind it and look at it again. So all students are more engaged this way. So you may say, maybe a couple things. Maybe you're the type of person that says, oh, that's cool. I want to create my own screencast. And a screencast is essentially, it records your screen and everything and your voice so that students can see how to do something. It's great for instructions of technological tools. Screencastify is an extension that you can add on there. But you might say, I'm not even there yet. That's way too much for me. That's fine. So what you can do is go to YouTube, find some Google certified trainers or innovators, go to the Google Tutorial Center, and find some screencasts that are already created. The idea here is that you flip the class and that you allow students, you could even have students look for their own tutorials. That's what I had done in my class when I was in the classroom, or when I was a coach, was I had the students find their own tutorials. If they didn't know how to use a particular technological tool, they would go and they would look for it. Then they were having trouble because they were searching things in Google and not finding very many, they weren't finding quality tutorials. And so I said, I wonder if there's a way that you could find out how to search more effectively, like how to do a better Google search. And then I walk away. And then they think about it. And then a student says, oh, we should Google how to Google search better. And so they learned on their own. And now I'm empowering them. I'm doing two things. As a teacher, you're changing your role, right? All of a sudden you're saying, you have the tools, you have technology, you have the power to learn these things on your own. And now they're lifelong learners. So we've talked a lot about how to have students own the work, how to have students publish their work, and how important that is, and how that will help them to own it, and how you don't have to know everything about technology in order to do this. But even more important and a higher skill than even having students publish their work for the world and having that audience that matters, what if our students could actually collaborate globally? What if our students could collaborate with industry partners and with students across the world, across the globe? I always wanted to do that as a teacher, and for a long time, I didn't know what resources to use. And maybe, I knew that there was Google Hangouts where, video calling, where you can call someone else that's not physically with you, but I didn't know how to find those people. I didn't know how to find those classrooms, how to find those teachers that wanted to do the same thing that lived in other areas than me. And so I want to share with some resources with you so that you can do this with your students, so that they can actually not just publish their work to an audience, which is great, but that now they can actually collaborate and speak with these other students. So this is a picture of students that are connecting with another class. We were in California, and the classroom of students was in British Columbia. And the students, as you can tell, they loved it. They were having a great time, and they were going through having to ask questions. It was a kind of a mystery hangout where they were trying to determine where in the world these students were. And so they had to they got out Google Maps. They had their iPads available there. And so they would look up Google Maps to try to figure out north, south of certain monuments and geographical locations and such. And it was so exciting for these kids, because now they're going to have greater empathy, right? Because I think a lot of times these students, at least our students, they don't go out into the world. They don't have the resources to go to other countries, to go even to other states, even to go 200 miles down the road. And so they don't understand. They don't have that empathy for others, for other cultures, because they've never met anyone from somewhere else. And so we can use technology to connect and create more empathy in students. So how do we find these people? For me, this particular, I was on a Twitter chat, and there was a vice principal that said, I'd like to do a mystery hangout. Is anybody interested? It's for, fifth graders. So that's how I connected, but that wasn't enough. I felt like there's got to be more people out there, and there are, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Before we do, though, I want to give you a little bit of context of why this is important.
Can technology revolutionize education? This is what a classroom looked like 100 years ago, or more, 150 years ago. What does a classroom look like now? Okay, it's slightly different. It's a little bit more disorganized. There's clearly technology in places, right? But what does the smartboard do that the blackboard didn't? What we've learned about education is it's not about a transfer of a thing from A to B. It's not a transfer from the book to the head. It's not a transfer from the teacher to the student. It is not this sort of commodity. The way our brains work is we interact with other people. We engage with our friends, with our families. We tell stories to each other. And through those stories, through those experiences, through those activities that we conduct together, we form memories. Each one of us forms individual memories. And it is out of those memories that our personalities are formed and our understanding of our world forms and our skills develop. I guess what I'm saying fundamentally is education is a social process.
So if education is a social process, which I truly believe is true, then learning needs to be interactive. So we've got to have students that interact with each other. And if we can have students interact globally, that is a game changer. The world is getting smaller. If we can have our students interact with others across the globe, we will have students that are more globally responsible, and we'll have students that are more empathetic. We'll have students that are able to make a difference in the world. We will have students that are world changers. Students love to collaborate. We used Blogger, our tech team that we had at the school site, one of the school sites I was at, and the students on their blog wrote, leave comments and questions so that we can serve you. Please collaborate with us. So this is something, a teacher responded to their blog at our same school site, right? So, even if I will show you resources to collaborate globally, but even collaborating cross grade level, across the road to another school site in your district or in your county, you can start there too. That was an exciting experience for these kids. So they had asked on the blog that people collaborate with them. And a teacher responds, I see you're looking for collaborators. I have a third grader that knows how to take screenshots. She wants to make a tutorial. Can you help us? So I knew that this had happened, but I did not tell the students. The students come in, they look at the blog, and you would have thought they won the lottery. Oh my goodness, Ms. Goyette. They said, someone read our blog. So first of all, they were excited that someone even read what they wrote, right? So, publishing to an authentic audience is important, but if students do that a lot and all of a sudden they don't think anyone's listening, that motivation might go down. So all of a sudden these students said, wow, someone read our blog. Then they said, and even better, they want us to help them help others. That's powerful. That's powerful. And so I saw how great this was for kids and how much it motivated them. So how do we do that on a global level? How do we do that? How do we find those teachers that are like-minded and want to do the same thing with their students? So Google Plus, if you haven't set up a Google Plus account, I encourage you to do that. Make sure in your profile that you say you're an educator. So go into Google Plus. If you see your waffle up there, I took this screenshot so you can find where to find it. Go up to your waffle, look for the Google Plus. There's the arrow that shows on the right there that shows the symbol. And then you're going to go on the left. It'll open up to home, but you're going to need to go to communities. So click on communities, and I want you to search for a specific community. There's a few ways that you can do this to connect with others. But definitely set up a Google Plus community or a Google Plus account and then go to communities. And these are some great resources on this next page here. So first set up a Global Plus account if you haven't already. Then if you're wanting to, first of all, join your own Google Educator group. It's called the GEG. So you'll see next to under step 1, connect. So first create a Google Plus account, then join your local Google Educator groups. But what if I have a classroom in California and we're learning about volcanoes? We're 4th graders, we're learning about natural disasters with our NGSS standards, and we're learning about volcanoes, and we would love to connect with kids that have actually seen a volcano, right? What I could do is I could ask to join a Google Educator group, a GEG, in Hawaii, right? Or somewhere where there are volcanoes naturally there already. You could do something like that. So that's an option. Join that Google Educator groups and then put a post up there and say, I'm looking to collaborate. This is what my students are wanting to learn. You know, is there anyone else that wants to learn about, you know, something that's going on here, you know, where I'm at? And you can connect that way. One of the best communities, though, for doing this is, you'll see it here, Connected Classrooms Workshop. So it's where it says step 2. Okay, this Google Plus community is by far the most active that I have found to connect with other teachers. There are over 24,000 members. These are teachers from across the globe, educators, tech coaches, administrators from across the globe that want to connect classrooms. They want to connect their kids with others. And so I'm a part of this community. You'll have to ask to join. So in the search bar, go ahead and search Connected Classrooms Workshop. Look for the one that looks like this graphic on the right. Ask to join. Make sure that your profile says that you're a member, and then ask to join it. And then I literally, because I'm a part of this community, will get emails, multiple emails every day of educators wanting to connect. Things like, I've got a 3rd grade classroom and we want to connect with someone about such and such content area. And so, or I just want to connect with someone in such and, you know, someone in Latin America, because we're learning about Latin American literature right now. Who's got a classroom that wants to connect with me? Whatever it happens to be. You know, we're a rural community and we're learning about different types of communities, and we want to connect with a classroom from an urban community. Who's interested in that? So literally every day I get several emails from this community of people wanting to connect, and you can post as well and see if other people will connect with you. So I would say that is a great way to do that. Once you have that connection, you can talk with that person and you can say, how do you want to connect? Do you want to do a Google Hangout so our kids can meet via video together? Do we want to you know, write a blog, and then you're going to look at our blog and you're going to respond? I mean, there's many different ways that you could do this. But I have found that the biggest struggle for educators is just finding those connections. And so that's why I wanted to share this resource, because it really changes everything when you actually have people to collaborate with. More resources for global connections. These are some platforms that were developed by some Google certified innovators. The one on the left is called the Global Audience Project, and it's designed to connect students and classrooms with other students and classrooms that are interested in the same topic, but it also is designed to create authentic audiences and connections with industry partners. And so if you go into the website there, you'll be able to fill out a form and join a database of those so that you can try and make those connections. So that's a resource that's good as well. And then also, Sarah Thomas, another Google certified innovator, has a website called EduMatch, edumatch.org. And that's a great place for also connecting. You know, it's a great website that is, it's easy to find, to follow the topics. It's laid out very well, very organized. And those educators that are on that website that you can connect with, there's Voxer groups to join, there's Twitter chats, you know, there's all these places that you can connect with other educators, and those that go to this website that are involved in EduMatch are all very interested in global connections. It's really the crux of the entire project. So I wanted to share those two websites as well. So I wanted to thank you for being here. I really, you know, feel free. This YouTube, this session is going to be archived on YouTube, so you can share the link. And those that were, if you have colleagues that you believe could benefit, certainly share that with them, as well as the other Google PD Week sessions that had gone on as well. You know, the Google Suite has so many opportunities for making those global connections for our students, for not only allowing our students to publish for an audience, but for a global audience, but also to connect our students with others. Like I said, industry partners, as well as other students from across the world. Be sure that you connect as well. And if you have if you're more interested in connecting, there's many ways to do that. I would go to EduMatch also. So I want to thank everyone for being here. I will keep the session open for a few more minutes in case people have additional questions in the chat. So we've got our live chat here on the side. So I'm going to be watching that for a moment if anyone has any additional questions. I do want to thank everyone for asking questions, and I saw some great conversations in that chat earlier. Thank you, Gerald, for answering some questions and clarifying some things for some folks. So I'll leave the chat open. The chat should remain open even once the presentation is done as well. So I'm gonna stop share. Let's see. Thank you, Liliana, for the great feedback. I'm glad that you've gotten some good ideas. Thank you, Robin, as well. There we go. And feel free to continue to connect if you have any other questions. You can certainly. I'm available. I love to help. So certainly follow me on Twitter at @Kat_Goyette, or email me at KatherineG@ersconnect.org. At the beginning of the presentation here, I had all my contact information. So feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I would also encourage you to go to the Google for Education training centers and tutorial centers, because there's a lot of great stuff on there as well from all over. All right. Well, thanks again. And like I said, if you have any additional questions, definitely feel free to connect. And just keep doing all the great stuff that you guys are doing for our students. And thank you again for Google for giving me this opportunity and for giving all of us this opportunity to connect, collaborate, and learn together. Have a great day, everyone.